If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my second channel, where I plan on uploading more DC and Marvel what-ifs. By the time of Star Wars Rebels, Ahsoka had already reconnected with Captain Rex, somewhere before Season 1. She introduced him to a then older Obi-Wan and the twins. Kenobi was able to contact Rex through Ahsoka at some point during Season 2. Years earlier, when Ahsoka met up with Rex for assistance, he asked who Luke and Leia were. She went on to tell him that she had taken the task of raising them and training them, and that they were Anakin and Padme's children. Rex was hurt, knowing that the general he served with, his friend, during the Clone Wars, had died, after Ahsoka told him what Kenobi had said regarding Anakin's fate. By this time, Luke and Leia had built a strong bond with Obi-Wan through the various adventures, missions, and training sessions they had all done together. With Kenobi taking Ahsoka's place during Rebels, the twins wouldn't work alongside the Ghost Crew as much as Obi-Wan did, but they formed a strong enough bond to consider them friends. Luke especially got along well with Ezra, and Leia with Sabine. The four young rebels had a good friendship. Obi-Wan's wisdom and skills as a Jedi served Kanan and Ezra very well in this timeline. The Jedi Master's advice and teachings benefited the two greatly. I won't be exploring too much of the Rebels timeline in this universe, as I don't wish to burn through years worth of stories in an extremely condensed video. I want to keep the focus on Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia, the adventures that Obi-Wan would go on with the Ghost Crew, and the events that were either slightly altered or drastically changed would be a set of tales for another time. When Yoda told Ezra to find Malachor, the events of it in this timeline mostly remained the same, but with slight alterations. In the Malachor mission, Obi-Wan first confronted Maul since last seen him on Mandalore during the Clone Wars. Most of the episodes remained the same, with not much really changing. Kanan got blinded, Maul escaped, Ezra and Kanan retrieved the Sith holocron, and returned to the rebel base. The rest played out how it normally did. The only major change is that Obi-Wan and Vader have their first confrontation after many years had passed, instead of it happening on the Death Star. When Vader prepared to finish off Ezra Bridger, he slowly stopped and turned around, as he said that he felt a presence he had not felt in a while. To his surprise, Obi-Wan Kenobi was here, in the flesh. Their interaction and what they said to each other on the Death Star during the original timeline happened here.
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
They dueled throughout the collapsing temple. When Ezra ran to grab Kenobi, as the temple wall sealed in front of him, he pushed the young Padawan away and continued to fight his old former apprentice. Ezra, Kanan, and the rest of the rebels are led to believe that Vader had killed the Jedi General. When Obi-Wan apparently died on Malachor, somewhere across the galaxy, Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia had felt his presence vanish from the Force. The now much older Togruta looked to her children as she placed her hand on her chest. Ahsoka spoke up and said she felt something terrible had happened. Luke and Leia felt this too, and a downcasted expression consumed their innocent faces. Shortly after, when they arrived at the rebel base, Ezra and Kanan informed them of what had happened. The rebellion had lost their greatest asset. At least, they were led to believe so. In my early drafts for part 3, I considered having Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia on Malachor with Obi-Wan, Kanan, and Ezra, but it didn't really serve the story as each person who was on Malachor was there for a purpose. And as close that would have been, I decided against it, especially in this context, where nothing drastic would have changed. I wouldn't have them confront Vader here. It was more of a reason not to include them. During the mission on Malachor, all living Inquisitors at the time were present there, and all of them died, but one, being Barriss Offee. The Miri Allen Inquisitor was too far away from Malachor to join the others. She was on an independent assignment, which was to track down and find Ahsoka Tano and her close allies and friends. Being the two young Jedi she was caring for, this was her mission. She would soon have another confrontation with Ahsoka and the twins later on. The events of Rebels Season 3 through 4 don't really change all that much. Ahsoka wouldn't be present as she would be occupied elsewhere in the galaxy with Luke and Leia. During Rebels Season 3 and 4, leading into the events of Rogue One, the trio had been aiding the rebellion behind the scenes. Ahsoka continued to work under the alias of Fulcrum, aiding in wherever she and the twins were needed, as well as finishing their training. During this duration of time, Ahsoka and her now grown-up children were still being tracked and hunted by Barriss, the last living Inquisitor under the Empire. Based on the little knowledge she knew and what Obi-Wan told her years ago, Ahsoka was attempting to put together the puzzle piece on learning the mystery of who Darth Vader was. To her knowledge, this is the individual who killed Anakin Skywalker, her master and older brother. By the time the events of Rogue One were happening, just before A New Hope, we settled on a moment here. Ahsoka and the twins had been on a quest for something on an unnamed planet, but unfortunately it was one where they had been tracked by the Inquisitor for the last time. In between their first encounter many years ago on the planet Rada, up until now, Ahsoka and the twins had likely indeed encountered the former Jedi Padawan, now Inquisitor, at some point. In that specific confrontation, Ahsoka hadn't spoke to Barriss since her trial in the late days of the Clone Wars. Even after all of those years, Ahsoka had not forgotten. She told Barriss why did she do such a thing to her. She wasn't just some stranger, she was her friend, and that betrayal hurt her. Luke and Leia realized at that time that Barriss was the same Inquisitor who kidnapped them long ago. In that face-off, she stated to Ahsoka that it was a shame her children were trained as Jedi. She went on to state that Luke and Leia were strong in the Force, and that they would have made exceptional Inquisitors. Of course, they did manage to escape. Back in present time, Barriss had revealed herself to Ahsoka and the twins. She had brought Imperial reinforcements. Very few words were spoken as the heated combat ensued. Ahsoka engaged with Barriss, while Luke and Leia worked together to dispatch the soldiers deployed. In the heat of the battle, Ahsoka was separated from Barriss and was forced to engage with the incoming troopers. Barriss had made her way towards Luke and Leia with the intent to kill them. It had turned into a 2-on-1 matchup. In the height of the duel, Luke had been disarmed by the Inquisitor and was pushed towards debris where he was separated from his sister. It was now up to Leia to stop Barriss, but she was alone. As the two experienced duelists clashed, Leia had managed to gain the upper hand, as Barriss was slightly hurt when she fought Ahsoka just moments ago. The duel ended within the confines of a collapsing area. Leia and Barriss clashed their blades violently, up close and personal. Knowing she was too weak and not strong enough, Barriss attempted to win another way, which was to force Leia to give into the dark side. She spoke down to Leia in a dismissive manner by telling the young Force user that she would not be strong enough to save her mother, brother, and friends from the wrath of Vader. This threat sparked a slight amount of anger in Leia. She did not appreciate the threats made towards the two people that she loved the most. Ahsoka and Luke were the only family she had, and the thought of them being taken away from her made her angry and fearful. In a sudden move of frustration, Leia disarmed Barriss by cutting her hand off. The ex-Jedi fell to one knee, looking up to Leia with a fearful expression and regret. Leia grabbed Barriss's fallen lightsaber, igniting it up to her face. As the surroundings around them began to collapse, Barriss's life force slowly started to fade away. She told Leia that she saw her future. She saw a quick glimpse. The Inquisitor was slightly afraid of what she saw, but that fear was wiped away by a smirk that formed on her face. Before Leia could finish her off, Luke came rushing in, yelling for her name, as he noticed the ground that Leia stood on was beginning to break apart. Leia didn't notice until Luke shouted. She quickly jumped away from Barriss as the Inquisitor fell down into a dark abyss. Her body would never be found. Luke helped his sister up. The two ran away as the chaos ensued around them. They were finally able to catch up to Ahsoka, who grabbed them by the hand as they all ran back to the ship. The three rushed into the cockpit and flew away from the planet, escaping the Empire's grasp yet again. When Leia handed Ahsoka Barriss's lightsaber, She removed the red crystal and placed it in her travel bag, securely inside a box with her most valuable belongings. Ahsoka asked what had happened to Barriss. Leia responded to her mother, saying that she fell down into the dark abyss below and that she was able to best her. But Ahsoka could sense something was off with Leia. Being the mother that she was, she knew her better than anyone else. She showed a worried look, but before Ahsoka could ask Leia more about what had happened, they suddenly received an emergency alert on the Fulcrum network. It was from Bail Organa. Ahsoka immediately patched the message through, and a holo recording of Bail appeared. He informed Ahsoka that this is the rebellion's most desperate hour. They needed to retrieve the Death Star plans from Scarif, and now needed to deliver the plans to the rebel base on Yavin. But that wasn't the most shocking news. Bail took a deep breath with a slight smile on his face, as he told them that Obi-Wan Kenobi was alive and well. Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia all looked to each other with confusion, joy, and shock. They told themselves, how could this be possible? Years ago they had sensed his presence in the Force vanish, and furthermore was confirmed when Ezra Bridger had told them what had happened to Obi-Wan on Malachor. The message continued to play. Bail Organa stated that they must report back immediately so that they may board the Tantive 4 to retrieve the Death Star plans above Scarif and bring it back, to then eventually pick up Obi-Wan afterwards. Now this is how Obi-Wan was actually alive. Sometime during the events of Rebels Season 3, Maul still managed to merge the holocrons with Ezra. This is how he knew that Obi-Wan was still alive, as he would state,
"He lives."
Shortly after escaping from the Ghost Crew, Maul would go on to Tatooine to confront Kenobi. This is where he saw him in his vision. Maul would of course die like he did in the original timeline. When Ezra found out, he went to Tatooine to warn Kenobi prior. He told the Ghost Crew and the other rebels that Obi-Wan didn't die, that he was somehow alive, but no one believed him.
I need you to help us prepare if we're going to be successful.
But Hera, if Master Kenobi is alive, think of what he could do for the rebellion.
If he was alive, do you think he would be hiding on some backwater world instead of helping us? I wish things were different. I really do. But right now, I need you here. There's too much at stake for Lothal and for us.
So when Ezra eventually went to Tatooine, he was surprised to see General Kenobi alive and well. He asked him how did he survive, and why was he all the way out here? Without getting into too much detail, Obi-Wan informed Ezra that he was alive because of him, and when the time came, Ezra would know what to do, and that everything else will make sense. Obi-Wan hinted that he needed to stay on Tatooine, and that no one could know he was here. As we fast forward to Season 4 of Rebels, when Ezra accessed the world between worlds, he pulled Obi-Wan right before Vader could kill him. The rest of their interaction would play out similar to the one Ezra had with Ahsoka. Ezra here had told Obi-Wan that he first found him on Tatooine, long after he believed him to be dead. Obi-Wan was confused and didn't really understand, until it clicked with him. He was in a paradox. So in order to keep everything intact, the Obi-Wan from Season 2, who was pulled into the world between worlds in Season 4, already knew what to do and what to say to Ezra when he met him on the desert world. Ezra ran back to his portal at his time. He told Obi-Wan to find him, and when Obi-Wan ran to his, he told him that he would. When Obi-Wan ran through the portal, he later escaped Malachor. A few days later, Kenobi left a message to Bail Organa, telling him that he's exiled on Tatooine. He didn't go into specifics, but Bail understood that this secret needed to be kept. Kenobi told him to only reach out when a very desperate situation occurred. Obi-Wan then exiled to Tatooine immediately. This is how a simple, yet fate-changing paradox had to be maintained. In between Seasons 3 and 4 of Rebels, Obi-Wan had been finishing his training with Qui-Gon. If Vader knew that Obi-Wan was still alive after Malachor, the Empire would attack the Rebels more ruthlessly, especially with the knowledge that Kenobi had been working with them. He was a high priority target, given that he was a member of the Jedi Council and Anakin Skywalker's master. So in a way, Obi-Wan being perceived dead by Vader and the Empire during this time was a blessing in disguise for not only the Ghost Crew, but the whole Rebel Alliance. Back in the present, Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia had arrived to Yavin 4. They boarded the Tantive with R2 and C-3PO, and made their way to Scarif. The plans were sent by Jyn Erso from the Imperial base below. When Vader cut through the rebels and saw the ship leave his view, he sensed the presence of Ahsoka, and she sensed him as well. When the plans were successfully delivered, Captain Antilles handed it to Ahsoka. He said that this was the transmission they received, and asked what it was. As the Tantive 4 prepared to jump into hyperspace, Ahsoka replied with hope. This concludes part 3 of What If Ahsoka Raised Luke and Leia. The adventure is far from over, as the story will continue in part 4, during the events of A New Hope, in this Elseworlds timeline.